Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox. I do want to get to the latest information here about the attack on Paul Pelosi at his home. This happening last Friday morning in San Francisco. So a top ally of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi demanding some fresh answers from the U.S. Capitol Police about security failures that led to that brutal attack on Pelosi's husband last week, questioning the embattled agency about whether it can keep lawmakers and their families safe. Now, House Administration Committee Chairwoman Zoe Lofgren sent a 4-page letter to Capitol Police Chief Thomas Manger over on Wednesday, saying the attack on Paul Pelosi raises, quote, significant questions about security protections for members of Congress. I do want to also talk about the fact that the Capitol Police apparently were not looking at the camera that was there on the House. So to talk a little bit more about that, here is Frances Steed Sellers. She is a senior writer with the Washington Post, joining us live. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me on.
So the situation here with the cameras not being monitored, what exactly do we know about that? They were supposed to have eyes on the home, is that correct?
So there have been cameras at the Pelosi's house in San Francisco for at least 8 years, cameras outside that could be monitored from the Capitol Police stations in the Hill. We gather that police officers only after local police showed up noticed the flashing lights and then looked back and realized that they had a recording of what had happened beforehand. So this becomes evidence going ahead, but it was not used and was not able to be used because it was not being actively monitored to prevent the attack or to get police there more quickly. That's a very serious shortfall, but it reflects some of the huge dilemmas facing the Capitol Police. There are 535 members of Congress. Nancy Pelosi has the greatest threats against her, but there are 535 members of Congress who disperse across this country. And the number of threats against them has increased tenfold since 2016. So the level of threat has gone up enormously. The budget, the staffing, and everything else for the Capitol Police has not gone up in a commensurate way.
And another question would be here about the implications of that injury. We're talking an 82-year-old man who was hit in the head with a hammer. I mean, those are some pretty serious injuries, and thankfully it does sound like he is recovering.
Well, there's some reports that he may still be in the ICU, which would be unusual this number of days after a head injury like that. It may suggest that his intracranial pressure is still being monitored or that there are other complications. But it's safe to say he's still hospitalized. It's very hard to predict after a head injury what will happen. We do know some promising signs. We know that he was able to recall details. This was released in documents at the moments of the half hour leading up to the attack on him. And that's key, that he had that recall in the immediate past before the attack. We know, because the attack happened in front of police officers, how long he was unconscious, which seems to have been about 3 minutes. Up to 30 minutes, head injuries are generally considered mild, 30 minutes of unconsciousness. So that would put, again, a rather milder implication on the prognosis. But you never know. I mean, he's 82 years old. It's much harder at 82 to recover from an injury like this. There may be secondary factors that come up. All of these things, of course, are going to be monitored very carefully in San Francisco by the people looking after him.
And that's something else I was thinking about. Of course, when you have an injury like that at that age, there could be some other ramifications or maybe other situations that arise as a result of a head injury like that at that age, correct?
Well, of course, and you don't know what's going to be found on an MRI that might have been pre-existing. I don't think you can generalize from any one case. Having said that, age acts against you as you get older. Your sort of cognitive reserve, your ability to spring back. As I said, both cognitively and also from the physical effects of injury are just slowed down as you get older. Now, there is also evidence that people's general fitness can stand to their advantage. So having, strong heart and lungs, those sorts of things are going to work well.
So I guess my other question for you is, where do you see, I guess, this investigation going? Because now we're talking about Capitol Police and things of that nature, and they're being looked into. So where could that go next?
And we're also learning that the alleged assailant was illegally in this country. So I think we're going to be following along very closely to find out where these goes. He's facing both federal and state charges, very serious ones. Of course, there are going to be investigations here into how to help the Capitol Police, or what else needs to be done to bolster the protection of congressmen around the country.
All right. Well, Frances Steed Sellers, senior writer there with the Washington Post, thank you so much for joining us. Anything else you want to add about that before we let you go?
No, thank you. I think we're going to be following this very closely, and also wishing Mr. Pelosi a very speedy recovery.
Of course, I'm sure we'll be talking to you again very soon. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, time now is 10:36 on the East Coast and 7:36 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I am here to bring you all of your top stories from across the country and across the world.